Yes, let's talk more about the East Midlands now, because all that talk about immigration, have we overlooked one very important point? East Europeans have the vote. Well, they do in this year's vote for the European Parliament. And one party here in the East Midlands thinks it's spotted a massive opportunity, as Rob Pitham's been finding out.
On the street and canvassing votes. It's a traditional election site, but there's nothing traditional about the target voters. This candidate is looking for East Europeans.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Isan Ghazni.
My name's Joanna.
Hi, I'm Maria. Hi.
Hello, hello. I'm out campaigning on behalf of the Liberal Democrats. Now, did you know that people who are living here from Eastern and Central Europe can actually vote?
Yes, certainly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you registered your vote yet?
Of course.
Yeah.
Joanna Prusicic came to the UK unable to speak English. Now she runs a restaurant in West Bridgford in Nottingham. She's planning to vote, but needs more information.
I need to know who are you, for who I'm vote, some more information, what you can do for us, what you can do for the Polish people.
It's a short step across the street to the next target. Dorota and Vitek are running two businesses from their shop, selling speciality teas and offering personal fitness training. They're planning to spend the rest of their lives in the UK, but are alarmed by the anti-immigration mood.
For me, it's just horrible when I hear something about bad words about Polish people or whatever, because we do work hard and we live as everybody else, we pay taxes.
Because obviously when you're exercising and you want to lose weight...
The Lib Dems are working hard on canvassing the sizable East European vote in the region. Under EU rules, citizens from member countries living in another country can vote there, leaving hundreds of thousands of votes up for grabs.
We can talk about the price.
Okay, all right.
So, yeah.
It's no surprise, perhaps, that politicians are courting this new electorate. Turnout in UK European elections is traditionally pretty low, at around 35%. And with more than 1 million people from Eastern Europe in the country, they could have a significant impact. But what would make Eastern Europeans vote for UK politicians? This newspaper is aimed at Poles living in the East Midlands.
Well, negative media coverage would be the first one, and different type of political debates where maybe some emphasis could be put on the positive contributions migrants make to the local economies, especially here in the East Midlands.
The Eastern European vote is a new and unknown force in British politics, but it seems that just like the rest of the electorate, politicians will have to work hard if they're going to win their votes.
Well, Isan Ghazni joins us in the studio now, and you're number 2 on the Liberal Democrats list in the European election. Your party hasn't been doing very well in the latest opinion polls. Are you courting Eastern Europeans, really, to try and win their vote?
Well, no, we're trying to work with everyone in the East Midlands to win their vote. But
are you hoping they will help to get you elected?
Well, but we'd work with everyone to try and get ourselves elected. But the reason why we think the Eastern European community is very important.
Is that why you've been as far as Boston in Lincolnshire to try and speak to them and find out what their concerns are?
We're targeting all communities. But as I said, the reason for working with Eastern European communities is because recently they've been quite demonised through some of the sort of negative myths perpetuated by UKIP and some people on the Tory right. These are people who have suffered in terms of their public image. And the reason why I went to Boston was to meet with these people and to talk to them and to find out what their views and feelings were. And I was actually quite surprised to find out that some of those communities are actually very, very disappointed with the political process in this country. Some of them are quite scared because they're not sure whether some of the rhetoric that's coming out is actually going to hurt them. So the idea was to try and find out how we can better engage with these communities.
Well, their votes could have a big impact, couldn't they, on the outcome of the European elections, Andrew?
Well, I think it's important, as Isan said, that all parties reach out to all the electorate and get their message across. Unfortunately, the turnout at European elections is traditionally quite low, therefore every vote really will count. Are
you worried, though, that your party may be alienating Eastern Europeans?
No, I think we've got a strong message with our place in Europe, and I think...
Is it too strong?
I think it reflects the electorate who we're going to be voting, so I think it's quite reasonable that we should pitch our message for that.
Well, we heard Polish people there worried about anti-immigration talk, and with your votes, with your views and your policies on immigration, that could actually cost you votes.
Well, you know who the people who are most vulnerable to the next wave of immigration is the last wave of immigrants, because they're the ones that compete for the sparse resources and the public services. So I think some of the biggest supporters of curbs on immigration are recent immigrants, because we are an overcrowded nation at the moment.
Will Labour be targeting this group of people, Eastern Europeans?
Well, Labour will be talking to everybody across the East Midlands who has a vote in this election, not just Eastern Europeans. There are other people from Europe who have settled in the East Midlands who will also be able to vote. I mean, I was out just this last weekend with Glenys Wilmot, Rory Palmer, who's a Labour candidate in Leicester, knocking on doors. But I mean, fair play to you, but I've got to tell you, people think the Liberal Democrats really let them down, broke all their promises, and I think a lot of people aren't going to vote for you because of that.
So you don't think it'll make any difference trying to court this group of people? You don't think it'll make any difference?
Well,
then?
you know, every politician has got to engage people. You know, that's what, you know, if we don't engage people, we're not doing our job properly. But at the end of the day, the Liberal Democrats said they're going to get rid of tuition fees, said they wouldn't put up VAT, said they would keep the EMA. They broke all these promises.
Do Eastern Europeans that you've spoken to, they feel let down by Liberal Democrat policy?
The Eastern Europeans we met are engaged in the same struggle that every other person in this country is engaged in, and that is trying to work themselves through the biggest recession in living memory caused by the economic mismanagement of the previous Labour government. So it's a bit rich coming from, you know, the gentleman on my left to talk about the problems with the Lib Dems. So basically, they do have the same
on the doorstep.
Yeah, well, I mean, you were party to all of that, and in fact, student tuition fees were brought in during the time that the Labour government was in.
You said you were going to get rid of them.
Well, no, but you raised them. But you raised them when you were in power.
You said you were going to get rid of them, and you're in government now.
No, we put into place a system which is fairer. Now,
you stood up all over the place with posters saying we're going to get rid of tuition fees.
Well, I mean,
you get into government,
you
don't do it.
How many Eastern Europeans we're talking about here? Because it's actually really, really difficult to get hold of those figures to try and break it down.
I think that there's an estimation of something in the region of, I think, probably in the region of 250,000 to 500,000 in the East Midlands in total, 250,000. I would
So they could really play an important role, couldn't they, in these elections?
That's
a lot of people.
And anything that any party does to encourage people to turn out and vote who are eligible to vote has got to be a good thing for democracy, and I also completely support that. It's important that all the parties reach out, present their messages, and let the electorate decide. That's called democracy.
And what are the real problems that they're talking to you about? What are the things their concerns are?
Yeah, one of the major problems they have is this whole notion of not enough information coming through about how to register and in terms of whether or not they are eligible to vote in the first place. So one of the things they're asking for is more information from the political parties. And I have to say that the Labour Party is completely ignoring them, because we spoke to them about local politicians and they were saying...
You'll be missing a trick if you're ignoring them, aren't you, John?
I mean, well, not in Leicester, because I was talking to people in Leicester just last week who have Swedish nationality and have Danish nationality about getting them to vote in the European elections. So not where I'm the MP, we're not ignoring them.
Well, they feel they've been taken for granted anyway. So, I mean, and the other thing, of course, is some of their contributions they make to the British economy is not taken into consideration. One of the myths that's been perpetuated is this whole thing about benefits. Well, actually, European migration benefits the European community.
So we can't afford to ignore them, is what you're saying?
They make a net contribution.
Okay.
To
Sam Gasney, thank you very much indeed. Thank